Hi everybody, and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine's conversation about the upcoming URC and with the South African teams in the spotlight. Zell, we got the Sharks that got panel beaten by 35 points last week.
Lucky to score 0.
Yeah, if there was ever a team that were lucky to score 0, it was the Sharks. What's going on with them? I mean, 3-3. Cardiff are not a bad side. They're certainly the best of the Welsh, but to go to the Shark Tank and put up 35 points on Sharks shocked a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it was a terrible performance, but I think looking from the outside in, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to say it, but too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. Like I think.
I don't know if you're allowed to say that anymore.
Oh, you're not allowed to say that.
Oh, well, the Washington Redskins were cancelled. I don't want my show to be cancelled. But yeah, there are too many.
But you get what I'm saying. There's too many
chefs, not enough.
That's a great way of saying it. So you get the feeling at the Sharks where the owner has quite a lot of say in what they do and how they do it. Mm-hmm. Ed Coetzee is quite loud. I mean, he's the guy who was at the press conference following the match, talking for the team. You had Neil Powell jet in from Sevens, and then get elevated to the director of rugby role, and then obviously Sean Everett was there and got sacked during the week. So it's possible that there's a bit of a lack of direction because it's a bit of decisions by committee or too many guys have a voice. I don't know. That would be my guess from the outside looking in. And then obviously they're missing a lot of Springboks. Those guys weren't playing, and I suppose as opposed to a team like the Stormers, the B-grade players are maybe not as cohesive as they could be.
Well, the Stormers were missing a lot of Springboks.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? So that I know I'm echoing what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse to lose to Cardiff by 35 points.
No, not by 35. Although Cardiff is a good team, the best in Wales, 6th on the standing, so they're not a pushover side, but you'd expect the Sharks to put up some resistance.
They wouldn't have toured with their Welsh players either.
True.
So
true.
It's a big statement and a huge disappointment.
You've got to feel like they've got too much talent in that squad to bounce back.
If I can just come into your politically, what you would think was incorrect, but it's very correct, because when we talk about transformation at the Sharks, I really would like to see a couple of Indians in the team, because it's a strong Indian community.
Native
there.
Indians or
local Indians,
okay.
And so nothing incorrect with what you said, but way too many Chiefs. My message to the owner, Marco Mazzotti, who likes to go onto Twitter, that I thought he was taking all the noughts in his name a little bit too far, as with Rock Nation. I found it very bizarre that Ed Coetzee, the CEO, was issuing the apology and not the head coach, who was fired the next day, or the owner. 7,000 people on a Sunday night in the wet in KZN. Firstly, the scheduling is a shocker. Sunday night rugby in South Africa doesn't work.
Well, does it work anywhere in the world?
It tends to work in the States, in the UK, and that in other sports, but certainly not here, and not in the summer. We've said it all along. Toulon they went from a Pro 12 team into the Champions of Europe 3 years in a row, because somehow they put together a great World 15, where each player, be it a Carl Heyman, a Johnny Wilkinson, a Bakkies Buerta, as Jan Smith said, we will not play for our country for the 3 years that we're here. So they were available every week to smash teams, and especially in Europe, and they won 3 successive Heineken Cups, and they won 1 top 14. Marco Mazzotti and the Sharks have effectively bought the Springbok team, who are only available for about 30% of the games. So my message to them is buy a proper B team and a grade 10 for your A team. Because they have no depth there. And to lose 35-0 was an embarrassment, but it showed up outside of your top 15. You've got nothing. Now you take what the Stormers have done.
It's also, sorry Mark, it also creates a bit of a subculture when you have a lot of Boks playing in a team that aren't playing. You know, it's sort of... It doesn't send the right message to the rest of the land.
And completely. And then if you look at the success of Leinster, the success of Saracens, and what I really believe Dobbo has developed in Cape Town with the DHL Stormers, is you've got to have a primary squad of between 35 and 40 players that includes your academy players. Because Leinster have been the masters and Saracens of showing us they can win their domestic titles and Europe, or be in that last 2 or 3, playing 50% of the time without their internationals. So the most interesting fact for me about last weekend's win from the Stormers when they beat the Scarlets, 36-19, having been 36-7 up, not one of the starting 15 started the title-winning final against the Bulls less than 6 months ago. Because of a lack of those guys on international duty, they were injured, or some of them have gone overseas. So when you can take when you can take a run on 15, change them by 15, and beat a decent Scarlet side that had 2 of the most experienced Welsh players in it, and play the kind of rugby they did in the first 50 minutes, you're getting your systems right. When Leinster last season could come to Durban and nearly beat a Springbok-laden Sharks, they were pressing, it was 30-23, and they were pressing for that victory at the end. And then come down to Cape Town and challenge a very good Stormers side and not lose by much. That's the depth that we have to build. And the Sharks have got a long way to go. The Stormers on the right track. The Bulls are on the right track. And the Lions, by default, on the right track, because no one gets picked out of their squad for the national side. But I think that could change in the next 2 or 3 years, because there's 4 or 5 players there that are certainly coming. That could be part of a box setter.
So that was my point about the Sharks, though, is that I don't think it's the players. I mean, aside from the issues at 10 that you've raised there, I think that, Pepsi Buthelezi, fantastic talent. I think they've got some good players there. But maybe that system that you're talking about at the Stormers and at the Bulls, that we've got John Dobson and Jake doing such great work, that's what's missing from the Sharks. I don't think it's necessarily they need to buy different players. I think the system of hierarchy they've got going there is not working.
It also doesn't help when you've got an owner and maybe he thinks it's humorous, who has this obsession with the Sales Sharks, goes online, calls them tuna, calls them the Tuna 15, says you want to see a real Sharks team player go to Durban, and then you get a situation where Sales Sharks beat Bristol over the weekend, the Bristol A team, and the Bristol B team beat South Africa A, and a Cardiff team comes to South Africa thinking they're playing the Sharks and ends up shredding tuna. So it's like, buy a decent 10, invest in quality players, stop talking about the other Sharks team and focus a bit more on your own Sharks team, because for a CEO to have to come there and apologize tells me that those players weren't playing for the jersey, they weren't equipped to play for the jersey, or something is seriously wrong in that camp.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what's the team looking like this week, Mark?
Well, at the time of discussion, it hadn't been announced, but there was talk of trying to bring as many of the national players straight back in, just to get the win, and I think to eradicate that 0. So I know there's a big integration policy that was agreed with Jock and Rassie when it comes to the to the regions. But I think they'll be a lot stronger than they were, and I think at home I am backing them to win and to come back and actually just restore some form of parity. But it's really just an elastoplast. Plaster over what is a bigger issue at the Sharks at the moment. And they fired their coach, and Neil Powell, with the greatest respect, was coming in as the director of rugby, which is a very different role to head coach, and all of a sudden he's now been asked to be the head coach. Are they looking for a new head coach? Is he going to be the head coach? Does Sean Everett feel that he was ambushed, etc., etc., etc.? So lots to sort out at the Sharks. I do think they'll get the win. But the matches that excite me really are what the Lions are.
Well, I mean, I know everything excites you, Mark, but at minus 15.5, are they going to win by? They're going to win by 16 or more? Where are they going to go?
Yeah, I think the Sharks will bounce back. I think it'll be one of those things where they pull up this week, and these issues will surface again in the future. But I give the Sharks, 16 points to beat Ospreys.
No, I think that's very charitable, and I think they will have a hard-fought 12-point win.
Yeah, look. There's something very fishy at the Sharks.
It's that tuna.
But when something smells fishy, I stay out of there. And I'm going to give this one a wide berth. I think the Sharks will win, but I have no idea by how much, and I don't know what team's going to run on. So, be careful on that one. Stormers, bookies have them favored by 23.5 points.
I think that's very charitable. I don't think it will be that. I think they will win. People forget they're not playing at the DHL Stadium. They're playing at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Cabrera. It's home away from home. We've always known there's been wonderful support for the Stormers in the Eastern Cape, be it George, Plett, wherever they play pre-season games, in Oudtshoorn. But again, it's kind of how many people pitch up at the game. It's the first time they would have played in those in that environment. The playing surface at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium is like playing at Clifton Fourth Beach. The sand, there's so much sand under that layer of grass. And it was in the old days of the Southern Kings when they were doing quite well and Alan Solomons was the coach. They would never allow their visiting team on there only for 15 minutes for the captain's run, because they never wanted them to experience what's going to happen in the last 20 minutes, because it's like being on King's Beach. Yeah. So with the style of play that the Stormers play, I think their fitness and condition is going to be tested, and there's a healthy respect from John Dobson and the Stormers players for the Welsh teams, because the Welsh teams have always been competitive against the Stormers. Last season and this season, they dropped a game against Cardiff, and they drew against the Ospreys. And last year, they snuck in against the Scarlets, and they won in the 81st minute. There's something about the Stormers that brings out the best in the Welsh players, and there's a kind of respect from within these Cape Town guys that they do see this dragon will breathe some fire. I think the Stormers will win it, but again, I think it will be more 10 to 12 points than anything 23 points.
Yeah, 23 and a half is, you've always got the risk of, say the Stormers are up by 30, and relaxing on defense and letting in that back door try that negates the cover. Yeah. And then you've got 23 instead of 23 and a half. Looking at teams they've played, they both played Edinburgh. The Stormers beat Edinburgh by 16. The Cardiff, who the fuck they play?
Who's that?
The Stormers. Who the Stormers?
The Dragons.
Okay, sorry. Let's. So if I was looking at,
they lost to Cardiff, and when they played them away from home.
Sorry, looking at who they're playing, the Dragons, right? Okay, so looking at the teams they have played, Mark, the Edinburgh have played both teams. The Stormers beat them by 16. The Dragons lost by 38. They played the Lions. The Stormers won by 9. The Dragons lost by 8. The Ospreys, the Dragons won by 7, the Stormers drew. And then Zebra, who doesn't beat them, 17 for the Stormers and 40 for the Dragons. So 23 and a half to me is too much. I'm going to have 1,000 rand down on the Dragons plus 23 and a half.
Oh, nice.
And what I think also reinforces what you're saying, Kev, is for the first time ever, the Stormers' next match is their first ever Heineken Cup game. And if you look at the 23 that Dobbo's picked, it's a mix and match. But those Springbok players that he's brought back, he may pull them on 50 minutes if it's going well, which talks to your point, because they just need to get the win to consolidate a top 4 position. Their focus is primarily going to be, can they put out their best 15
spot on
in their first ever home game in a league stage in the Heineken Cup, because if they lose that, and it's such a condensed one, they're in trouble. So the Dragons don't have that. These guys do have that. And he said he'll use his whole squad. He's been true to that in the first 7 matches. I think they've used the most players out of anyone in the competition. And not out of desperation, but they have been primed to try and put out the strongest team when they play that first match in the first week of December at the DHL Stadium. And then obviously wait for the 2 derbies, 23rd against the Bulls of December and 31st of December against the Lions. And as Dobbo, when we spoke to him earlier in the week, said, it's been such a mental mind shift for the management and the players to be playing intense rugby in December. And he doesn't quite think supporters have got around it yet, because ordinarily you wouldn't be preparing to go to the DHL Stadium on the 31st of December at 7:30 to watch the Stormers. You'll be preparing for your New Year's party. So much off the field in terms of mental dynamic has changed. And again, it's a home away from home, but it is in Cabrera. It's not in Cape Town. I think it's going to be very tight. And anything going for under 24 points, under 23. Yeah, is the bet to take.
Yeah. I agree with you fully there, Mark. 23.5. I'm going to take the plus 23 handicap, and hope that the Stormers will win, but not by 24 more.
I was just being informed by Stato that my big concern about them putting out their best team was not for a home game, but for an away game to Clermont, and then they play London Irish the next week. So they've got the 10th and they've got the 17th. That's Heineken Cup games, and then they go into the 23rd and the 31st in the URC. So 4 games in December. If you take this one, then basically 5 in December is a massive ask for players who ordinarily would be on the beach.
What's your views on the intensity of a Heineken Cup type competition?
I think it's just a different level. And what's going to be different for our teams, it's the first time they're going to play a French team. And Clermont is known as one of the toughest challenges, because you don't fly into Clermont. You fly into Paris, and apparently you go by Oxwagon to get there. And it takes you a while there. The difference is Clermont have always struggled away from home, but at home, it will be a hell of a ask. We'll talk about that.
What will you be looking for? A bonus point?
I think they'd be looking for a losing bonus point there, and looking to knock over London Irish here, knowing they can beat London Irish in the UK, the familiarity of being in England, and then just smashing Clermont over here. Because these French teams, if you go back to Montpellier as an example, Montpellier lost at home. Lost away from home by 80 points to Northampton Saints, and the very next week basically beat them at home with their A team. But the points differential was so big. So the French teams have been known to send a B team away and their best at home. So it's a massive month for the DHL Stormers, and so that's why we go back to that 23-man squad, how they're going to use it. They're not going out there to pump the Dragons by 23 points plus.
24. Or
24. They're going out to actually just get the win and get out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we all agree on that bet. Stormers, Dragons plus 23.5 for 1,000. The Bulls, 6-2, playing Cardiff.
Yep. I thought you were talking about their bench.
No, it's not a 6-2 split. 6-2 record. Up there. The only form they've played 3 similar teams: the Lions, the Sharks, Edinburgh. +2 for the Bulls. Cardiff lost by 8 to Edinburgh. Cardiff lost by 13 to the Lions. The Bulls won by 16. Cardiff beat the Sharks by 35, as we've said, and the Bulls beat the Sharks by 13. The bookies have this one. Minus 14.5 points favorites. Pretty right on, I think, there.
Yeah, I don't know. Cardiff are Wales' best team. They've won 5 out of 8. I think they've won 4 of their last 5 matches. They've just blanked the Sharks. The high-fault factor comes into it. I think the Bulls win this game, but I don't know if it's as comfortable as 14 points. I don't know. My gut feel is that the Bulls, it's close until about 65 minutes, and then the Bulls score an important try. So I'm going to say the Bulls win this one by 10 points.
When I look at the Bulls' form and you say 6 from 8, it just doesn't seem like it's a 6 from 8 season for them. I remember the 2 shocking performances overseas, where they got hammered. They just got in against Edinburgh. They should have put a very weak Shark side away. They let them back into the game. I've got them to win. I think it's a 10 to 12 point game.
Yeah.
But what has impressed me about a lot of the overseas teams is this altitude factor. They've all finished the stronger.
Yeah, true that.
I mean, even in Cape Town where there's no altitude at sea level, but the way the Scarlets came back at the Stormers after 36-7, the way sea level, Cardiff got stronger in the second half, and the teams that have come and played up north, and you look at the Lions win, the Lions were comfortably ahead, and all of a sudden, the Dragons started coming back. They scored the 2 late tries. So I think they are well-conditioned sides. And yeah, and it's not like you're going to get 30,000 people at Loftus either. We've seen the crowds haven't been good anywhere. And so, yeah, again, Bulls win, but certainly not with a runaway.
I think Jake will be keeping an eye on how Cardiff run the clock, because those travelling teams have done a great job of having props go down with a sore knee for 30 seconds every 3 minutes, you know. So I think they'll be keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, I agree the Bulls win. I have no idea by what amount. I'm going to stay away from this one. The one sure bet, like I said, I'm making is Dragons plus 23.5. And then we come to the Lions.
Well, for the first time ever, history breaking, I backed the Lions to win a game last week, and they actually did. So
they play the Scarlets, and you know, it's some similar form across the games they've played the same teams. You know, Stormers, Lions lost by 9, Scarlets lost by 17, Ulster, Lions lost by 2, Scarlets lost by 16, Ospreys, Lions won by 1. They drew. The Scarlets drew.
Lions at home very different to the Lions overseas, but it's these high-scoring games. Lions get into a good start, or they get down and then they come back. I've got the Lions to win 37-26, 37-20, 27, 10 to 11 points, but in a thriller, a great one. Lots of tries, not too many tackles. Yeah. Sunday afternoon, 1:30.
11.5.
Okay, I think it's a very good handicap. Yeah. So, but I give it to the Lions at home, and their brand of rugby, and again the mental mind shift. Where's a rugby player normally at 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon? He's tucking into some good lunch, or he's having a good drink. Now he's out there playing at altitude. Weird kickoff time, but home ground advantage. If this one was being played the other side, I'd say 11.5 to the Welsh team.
I think we should go betting against the Lions based on our record. But
yeah, I played one Sunday rugby game against Glamorgan years ago. I had a broken nose and my testicles were kicked up through my throat.
Was this before or after the game, Kev?
And this is when you couldn't sub. You're only allowed 3 subs a game, and I just was over to the coach. He just gave me one of these.
I thought that was at the buffet afterwards.
No buffet afterwards. Yeah, I did add to the choir. Yeah, a nice rendition. But
slightly higher pitch, though, right?
Yeah, very high.
All right. So it's going to be a good weekend for the South African team.
4 South African wins.
4 South African wins.
But tough. A good weekend, but a tough weekend. And, you know, I love Welsh rugby because it's to me even more closer to South Africa than it is to New Zealand in terms of what those regions mean to the Welsh people and the history of it. And the Welsh national team has had a torrid time. The regional sides have had a torrid time. And I thought that Cardiff win was fantastic for Welsh rugby. And we want to see Welsh players coming here, doing well, winning in South Africa as much as we wanted to see our teams win over there. And I see as this tournament gets stronger and progresses, I really do see Wales getting stronger and the Irish generation getting slightly weaker. And Scotland always been there and thereabouts. And it just seems like there just seems to be this additional passion and kind of like-mindedness when the South African guys play the Welsh guys. A bit like when we played the Kiwis, and Ireland were a bit more like the Aussies.
Yes.
So good on you for the Welsh boys. You'll be tough, but I just don't think at the moment the quality's there to quite get those away wins.
Yeah, I have to agree. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming in. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Kev.
And have a great weekend and make every bet a winning one.